Hey everyone, today I want to talk about the Eagles' offense this past year and why it was so successful and what really they kind of did to make all of it happen. And so we'll start off by saying a lot of people say that they ran the RPO, which is called the run pass option, and that's why they were so successful. But I think one thing I really want to clarify in this episode is that that is a very common misconception. The Eagles actually didn't run the RPO all that much, and they really only ran it in specific areas of the field that's kind of between the 20-yard line and the 40 on both sides of the field. And this is like a transition area of the field where you can keep the chains moving and it's where you want to make a safe play and get the ball from one end of the field to other where you can be aggressive again. And so let's start off by talking about what the run pass option is. For most people know it, but let's just go through it real quickly. We're looking at a pre-snap look of an RPO right now. And the RPO, essentially all it does is you just take whatever the defense is going to give you, and that's kind of it. It's just a numbers game, and it's one or two reads. And so in this formation here, you have 5 down linemen and a tight end, and then in the defense you have 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers. And the most important thing about the run pass option is that you have to look at the offensive linemen, what they're doing. And in an RPO, the linemen actually run block. So even though it might end up being a pass play, the offensive linemen are going to run block. So if you see a play and you're not sure whether it's a play action or an option or an RPO, just look at the offensive linemen. If they are run blocking and the quarterback pulls it for a pass, that's likely an RPO. But anyways, let's get back to how this play runs. And this is one of the most basic plays you can possibly run off the RPO. And the running back's to the left of the quarterback. If he runs, he's either doing an outside run or an inside zone run. And then the routes are going to be a slant from here, a slant from here, and a bubble screen. And there's 2 reads on the play, essentially. First, it's kind of the tandem of this linebacker and safety. So if the linebacker is filling, this safety is going to come down into the box as well. So as of right now, there's only 6 men in the box. If there's 6 men in the box and 6 guys on the line, the Eagles are just going to run the football. Now, if this safety creeps in, then there's 7 in the box. This safety is actually going to slide to middle high of the field, in which case that's when you want to run or pass the football. So if you can see on this play, I froze it a little late. The safety is going to slough in, obviously, and this safety's already started creeping over. And so once you've decided the numbers game and realize that this is not the time to run the football, you want to look and read this guy next. So you're going to run a bubble screen this way, and one of 2 things happens. This guy follows the bubble screen and clears this space of the field so that this slant can be hit for a completion. Or he drops back in zone and covers this, and you want to hit this bubble screen coming around. And that's really all it is. Now, we'll take a look at another formation and lineup that they ran, and this will start to show why they were so effective more than other people in the past running it. Alright, now we're looking at a similar play and similar formation, but a different defensive alignment and actually a different opponent matchup altogether, which kind of dictates why Zach Ertz gets involved here. And so we have kind of the same formation again. This receiver is really far inside this time, but we have 3 receivers and a down tight end. Well, not down, but an inline tight end. And the running back is to now the right of the quarterback. So the run play is going to flow this way, either outside zone or inside zone. And so we'll start to see, here you see pre-snap, the Vikings have declared the 7-man box already, the single high safety. So you know beforehand, if you're playing the numbers game, you really don't want to run the football. But if Eric Kendricks decides not to flow to this side, you will have an opportunity for a hole. So if he decides not to flow, that is an option. But pre-read, Carson Wentz is already, or not, this would be Nick Foles, is looking at two options. He's got a slant here and an angle route here. And one of the things that the Eagles did really well is figuring out how to use their personnel and understanding their strengths and weaknesses and putting them in the best positions to succeed. So Zach Ertz, it's not a groundbreaking secret. He is not the best run blocker, but he's an excellent route runner, and he's great at catching the football. He's got kind of this basketball type, go up and get it game to his play, and that kind of leads to how the Eagles used him this year. Now, I don't know if this is Anthony Barr or Harrison Smith, but regardless of who it is, I want to guess it's Harrison Smith. He's not going to win a blocking battle against a defender like that. He just isn't. Harrison Smith is a beast. He's got long arms, he's strong, and he's great against the run. Ertz is good, but he's not a run blocking tight end. So automatically, the Eagles decide they want to put Ertz in more receiving positions in this game than blocking positions. And that might change from opponent to opponent. But, I mean, ultimately, your best chance to win is use his strength, which is route running. So most games use him like that. But, so as opposed to the play before where the tight end actually blocked, they've adjusted and said, this is our opponent, this is our look. Let's run some receiving or some tight end routes as well. And the angle is a good route for Ertz because it allows him to get inside position and kind of be able to, on his way in, use his boxing out ability and his good hands to bring it down. So as long as you're able to get inside of the defender, if you're Zach Ertz, that's going to be a completion most of the time, simply because of his body type and how he plays. And then you have this other play, the slant right here to the receiver. So off the snap, basically, we'll take a look to see if Kendricks moves, because if Kendricks doesn't move, Harrison Smith stays. You got a slant and an angle route that are both occupied, so you will want to hand it off. But Kendricks does flow to the play side, and it gives you two options. You have Ertz here on an angle, and then you have this slant. So if Harrison Smith has this covered, you still have this slant. Or if Smith comes on a blitz and Kendricks stays, the angle route is also cut off, so you want to hit the slant as well. But this is an example here of how different defensive matchups dictated what they did with their personnel, and how different defensive fronts also dictate how you read the play and execute it differently. Looking at another play here that was another reason they were so successful with the RPO, kind of relates to this concept of throwing teams off balance and keeping things hidden and doing a lot of things out of similar looks. So one of the things Doug Peterson went on record was saying was, and actually particularly with this exact play, is this is a unique formation that they like to use a lot, and they like to feature Ertz because Ertz is down here isolated all on one side. But he said, there's a lot of really smart defensive coordinators, so in these unique formations, if you can only run one or two things out of them, then they're not going to be successful. So the Eagles emphasize balance and looks and versatility all season, and this is a perfect example of it. So they took a unique formation that they like to use that was successful, and they needed to build off of it to ensure that it remained successful. And this is the look. And here on this RPO in particular, they have already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys in the box, and they only have 5 down linemen. So you're at 5 on 6. You already know, we don't really want to run the football. And one thing they did differently from a lot of teams is a lot of teams like to use in-breaking routes because it's a little safer, I guess. It's harder for a defender to break on a pick with an inside route. Well, I guess depending on the formation and all that, but it's a safer play. But the Eagles really emphasized kind of building out this entire playbook and all these route combinations off of the RPO. And what that allowed for was on a pre-snap look, the defense just doesn't know what's coming at them. So in this play, Ertz just runs a simple out route, and that's it. And a lot of teams don't kind of mix up those variations and mix up those run plays and take normal play calls and just add an RPO element to them in specific formations, and they did such a good job of that. And on this play, this linebacker comes unblocked because the offensive line flow is this way, and because Ertz is doing an out route, he can actually hit him without that ball being knocked down in the passing lane. And also, he knows that Landon Collins is 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, so he doesn't have to think twice about where he's throwing his football. He knows he's just doing a quick out, and Landon Collins can't break on it. But this play right here is just another example of how they really emphasize throwing teams off balance, and that was the key to their success all year. Doug Peterson is just a really, really good coach. And the more you watch every single game of theirs, the more you realize, that's why they won. I mean, they had a lot of players with versatility, and that is really important, and that was also another reason why they won. But being able to utilize them correctly and keep defensive off balance and guessing was so crucial. I want to show this play here for two reasons. One of them to prove the point of the whole concept behind this RPO and how they were always running it. They weren't, and this play kind of is an example and shows why that's the case, or why people have some misconceptions. But then also, it does add a level of intrigue, and it kind of points to how creative they were and how they changed a lot of things up, and how they even, it almost feels like they changed their type of read up if you think too hard about it. And it's just kind of goes to show you, when people are preparing for them, they're like, well, I don't really know what we're gonna get. And so on this play pre-snap, you'll see, they have 5 linemen and a tight end, so they have 6. The Seahawks have already put 7 in the box. Right here, 7 in the box. And so this play is actually, when it gets snapped, you'll see it's the bubble screen, the slant, and the slant. And so when you look at this pre-snap, you're like, oh, this could be an RPO, and it's the basic formation, the basic running of it. And so you would think, oh, Carson Wentz is going to pass this, but he doesn't. And that's one of the first things that makes me think that this is not an RPO. But he does a few interesting things here, and one is that he hands the ball off. Now, he's going to hand the ball off for one of two reasons. So let's run this play just a little. So, right off the snap, let's take a look at what's happening real quick. You'll see the bubble screen, the slant, and the slant. Single high safety, the linebackers have committed. So, this is pass the ball. And what he ends up doing is he hands it off. So, he's handing it off. It makes you think, well, if he's going to hand this off with 7 guys in the box, it's 6. This was actually not an RPO. This was just a straight up run play. And he does this whole thing of extending the handout and looking somewhere to make them think, well, when they review the tape later, oh, did the Eagles actually run an RPO in this area or not? And so it's one of those things where everyone's like, oh, that's an RPO. But it might not be. And I don't think that it is. Because for 2 reasons. Again, he wouldn't hand the ball off here. And secondly, look where his head is. His head is actually trying to read Richard Sherman. I think that's Richard Sherman. I don't remember if he was in this game or not. That might be Shaquille Griffin. Regardless, let's just get past that. Say, look where his head is. His head isn't actually reading this safety here. And, well, he wouldn't really need to put his head here to read the safety, because he should know off the bat that he's coming. And so he needs to look for the pass. He's not looking over here. So it's actually a really intriguing play. And I know that he's not looking over here because the running back was lined up to his left. So that's another intriguing thing. They put the bubble screen across on the other side of his read. But maybe that's why he's looking here. because he's only going to hit this slant. But why would he? I mean, if you can't win the slant and they have the numbers game, you're not going to win anything. Whereas at least if you're looking to this side, if you don't win the bubble screen, you have the slant. If you don't win the slant, you have the bubble screen. So it's interesting. And you look, and I mean, Torrey Smith's got inside position. If he looks to this side, he's got Torrey Smith wide open. But that's one reason that makes me think this is not an RPO at all. Because even just the layout of it, why would you put the running back in the read cross the second read here, like we talked about in that first play? And secondly, why would he hand it off? And the only thing that makes me think why he'd hand it off is he only wanted to make one read, thought Alshon Jeffrey could get inside position, sees that this cornerback hasn't bit outside at all, and just decides we're in the red zone. It's, I don't know, what is it? First and goal. Let's just not make a mistake. And so here, he hands it off, and the play is stuffed. And so this play is a really good example of how they did things to try to hide things, how they're set, but how you can really tell. A lot of people just say, "Oh, RPO," but it's actually not. Here's another play that is that similar example with the whole concept of this is an RPO. And actually, I could play the volume, but I have the speed to 0.5 so you can see some of the details I wanted to talk about. But on this play, you'll hear during the Super Bowl, Al Michaels said, and this is an RPO. So, I mean, it's even deceiving when the announcers are saying to the average fan, this is an RPO. And this play is not an RPO. And I'll tell you exactly why. The number one most important thing I said at the beginning of all this describing an RPO is that the offensive linemen need to run block. So look at that first. In this play, you'll see they are not run blocking. This is absolutely a play action play. But you'll see Nick Foles drags out the ball with the running back and holds it, and that kind of look alone can deceive people. But look, here, the second the ball is snapped, the offensive linemen stand up and back up. That is pass blocking. This is a play action play. But the announcers are saying this is an RPO, this is an RPO. It's not. And so that, yet again, it's just one of these misconceptions that they always ran RPOs. But at the same time, this misconception comes because the Eagles were so good with disguising their plays, with making everything look the same, running a balanced attack, and just their level of detail to every little thing they did in these plays, that when you watch it, for the most part, I mean, most of these people can tell what's going on, but it still keeps you guessing. And when you have so many different looks coming out of the same formation or lineup, and you're consistent with that, and you can run different things out of that, it really throws a defense off, and it keeps them off balance all game long. And that's how their offense was just so good. And we're going to take this concept and get in of the off balance style of offense, and I'll show you the running game in a similar manner, how they were able to keep defenses off balance there as well. Okay, now we're going to get into their run game a little bit. And their run game was so balanced as well. They ran so many different concepts, and they ran them so well. Even planning for that made it so difficult. And this play in particular is the perfect example of their theme of let's keep the defenses off balance. And it's called a trap play. The trap run play is the ultimate keep someone off balance, because it involves just straight up not blocking people and running right by them. And so Pro Football Focus put out an article that pretty much said that they ran the trap play the most out of any team in the league, and they had by far a whole 90 yards more than the second next team for amount of yards gained out of the trap play. And it was the Eagles number 1, the Patriots number 2, and the Ravens number 3. But the Eagles by far ran it the most effectively. Now let's get into what the trap play is. The trap play, basically, it's designed to run past people who are unblocked, and it's also designed to give your offensive lineman an advantage, because it it provides new angles to block from. So you don't have to just stand up and try to push someone, move them straight ahead. And right now we're looking at a GIF on replay of a trap play in particular. And what you'll notice is on this side to the left here, both these linemen go completely unblocked. And, well, I guess the one guy gets blocked later. So the guard pulls all the way over, takes out this guy. But I think it's David Irving over here to the left. Doesn't even get blocked, just falls on his face. So all of a sudden you create a numbers advantage by not blocking someone. And you can double team other players and free up a hole by doing nothing but letting that guy push forward too hard and fall on his face. Now, this is a good way to deal with penetrating linemen and defensive lines that flow too hard. So if teams are blitzing well, teams have a good 4-player rush, or if they're trying to penetrate in a block game and you run a trap and run them straight out of the play, next thing you know, you hold defenses back from wanting to flow too hard on you. And this is just the perfect run play for the Eagles this year to exemplify what they do, why they do it, and how they do it so well. And it's because when defenses think they finally have it figured out, think what they know is they're going to go on, try and stop them, they run this type of play. And all of a sudden, now, you don't know what's coming at the very next snap. Alright, and we were looking at another trap play. This one was a little cleaner from a blocking standpoint. This one didn't involve a defensive lineman falling on their face. It was a hat for a hat rather than unblocking someone. But as you can see, the way they cross over, the trap play essentially allows interior linemen to penetrate. But if you notice, the running back is closer to the line of scrimmage, and if you watch how LeGarrette Blount hits these runs, he hits them so fast he doesn't hesitate. So the whole point is to let an interior lineman penetrate, but because he's not blocked, you have to flow really hard to the play, really fast to the hole, and then he can't get a hand on you. And LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi are really good body types and are good at running these plays because they are big bodies. They are really hard to bring down, and they can hit these gaps hard enough that if someone penetrates or arm tackles happen, they're at least going to fall forward and not lose yards. And then on top of it, I mean, they both have experience running it. And if you just watch this play, there isn't penetration on this one, but they come at you from so many different angles. They skip the block off the snap and then come at you from angles that allows for movement. It forces the defense to hesitate. It freezes them, it creates a hole, and on top of it, you're hitting them from the side, so you can actually move them just completely out of the play. And it also allows for confusion enough that the Eagles can get guards on linebackers and bigger body types on smaller body types and just move them completely out of the play. And the Ravens had a great running game this year, and one of the reasons was they ran nothing but a trap against the Miami Dolphins when they blew them out 40-0. And the Patriots are the king of play calling and keeping teams off balance and running surprises. And the Patriots were the second most yards gained through the trap play. And all we're looking at here, and the theme that I keep trying to point out, is the Eagles were just so smart with all of this, and it created this whole misconception that they're always running these RPOs and these certain plays, and when in reality you really sit down and break it down, they aren't. But that's the beautiful thing about it, is people didn't even really understand what kind of offense they were running. Now I know the NFL coaching staffs can watch this, and I mean, they're smarter than me. They can see this kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter what they can see. The Eagles can present the same look and run it 7 different ways, and if you're a defense, you have no idea what's coming pre-snap, and that makes it so difficult to plan for. And then on top of it, the Eagles got their personnel mapped out so well that they can beat so many different styles of defense. Because you think about the fact that they had Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is one of those mismatches, so to speak. And I talked about how the Bears drafted Roquan Smith because he's the type of player that can actually cover a mismatch and force a team to beat you a different way. And there are teams plenty of teams in the NFL that have those type players, you know, the Telvin Smiths, the Deion Jones, and all that. And so when the Eagles play a team like that, I mean, it doesn't mean that Zach Ertz can't win those battles. But if a team's hell-bent on taking away their mismatch, then, you know, they still had Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith outside, who are just quality receivers. And Alshon Jeffrey can run, he can do a deep ball, he can do a slant, he can go up and get the ball. And it just basically, you can't game plan to take away everything of their game, is what I'm trying to say, because their run game was so good. And if you wanted to flow too hard to their run game, they could run either an RPO or a trap play. So next thing you know, defenses really don't want to flow too hard, because you don't know whether a pass is coming out of this or a trap play, and you're going to run yourself right out of the play. And when defenses have to hesitate on the line, it creates passing opportunities. And so Eagles can run play actions, or they can just run regular pass plays where the quarterback actually has time. And it's just, it was a beautiful thing to watch the Eagles run this year. And it's why they were so successful. And then you think about teams trying to copy it going forward. The number one team that sticks out in my mind is the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears they hired Matt Nagy, and who came from the Andy Reid coaching tree, just like Doug Peterson did. And not that Mitchell Trubisky is Carson Wentz, but he is in a mold that he's athletic, he's very, very accurate in short and intermediate throws. He's got a good arm, and he's had practice running an RPO. And then you've got their really good offensive line that can zone block and power block, and drafting James Daniels. And they have that good, solid interior, and they'll be able to run RPO off of that with Jordan Howard in this zone scheme. And then they went out and they got the Allen Robinson, which can kind of take on the Alshon Jeffrey role. They signed Trey Burton straight up from the Eagles, declaring he's going to be their new Zach Ertz, because he was the Zach Ertz when Zach Ertz was injured. They have Deion Sims, who can take the Brent Selleck blocking tight end role. And then they drafted Anthony Miller, who's going to do a wonderful job filling in the slot and taking on that Nelson Aguilar role. And Anthony Miller, I think, was the best receiver in the draft, and he's going to do tremendous in the slot initially. And then you have Kevin White outside doing what Torrey Smith does, which is just run straight down the field and try to draw PI, and Kevin White can at least do that. And so when I look at these Bears and the way the NFL is going, there are teams that see what the Eagles have done, have studied it, and are really trying to make a mold around it. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out next year. How many teams really try to do that? How many teams have the personnel to do it? And how many teams use their personnel correctly to do it? And the Bears could be one of those teams that you see explode in fantasy football because of it. It just really depends on Trubisky's development. I'm not incredibly high on him coming out of college, but we'll see what his development pans out this coming year. And it really doesn't hurt that he's now got Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller to throw to. That should immediately improve his game. So we'll see. But all in all, the Eagles, just the coaching staff was amazing. And it was one of the best coaching jobs I've seen of any years. And they have similar personnel. They know what they're doing. And going forward, they should be good for years to come. And last thing I wanted to wrap up before I finish this video, I want to get to the offensive line for the Eagles in terms of something they do a little differently from a lot of teams in the league. And that is they place a premium on the right tackle position. And a lot of people say, why is this important? Well, a lot of the NFL, this whole back in the day concept came from, if you're a left tackle, if you're the blind side of the quarterback, that's where you put the pass rushers because you can't see them coming. And so if you're left tackle, you need to be the best. And so as long as that's fortified, they can pass block. The other side of the line can just kind of exist and be run blocker or whatever. And so how the way the NFL has adjusted to that is they've put all the better pass rushers on the right side. And it's one reason why the numbers have even blown up more for sacks and pressures and all that. I mean, J.J. Watt plays on that right side. Von Miller plays on that right side. And I go on and on and on. So the best players in the league play and rush to that right side. And a lot of teams say we got to make our left tackle the best player or the best blocker, and they end up not going against the best pass rusher against the other team. So it's kind of a mismatch a lot, and I don't know why teams haven't completely evolved and feel the need that it's very important to adjust the right tackle. But the Eagles have placed a premium on that because they have Lane Johnson on that right side, and Lane Johnson could play left tackle anywhere. Um, he's an athletic freak, and he is the best right tackle in the game. And it's really interesting to note this is why you can tell that they have such a meaningful role for that right tackle is when Jason Peters went down, they kept Lane Johnson on the right side. So even though Jason Peters went down, we need to watch that backside, we need to fill that backside. No, the Eagles said, I mean, all the best pass rushers on the right side, we're going to keep Lane Johnson on the right side. And it's just that's another small thing that they did that a lot of teams don't think to do or don't care to do, and but it's a really important detail. It adjusts to the game. It puts your matchups on the right matchups, and it's just another tip of the hat to the Eagles. As always, thank you for watching this episode, and if you like my content and haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I plan to be releasing videos as often as I possibly can because ultimately I want to make a career out of this, whether it be self-supporting through YouTube videos like this or something else happens, I get picked up somewhere along the way. And if you like my videos and want to support me financially to continue to do this as often as I possibly can, my Patreon account's up to the top right. And if there's anything that you want me to do a video of or explain or answer, just leave in the comments section and I will be sure to get a video out as soon as I can on that. And I just want to again thank you so much for your support, and moving forward hopefully this can become a good thing.